All right, it's 6:32. I'll bring the meeting to order for stuff modifications and changes. Anything to add tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on to public comment. I don't think there's anybody here from the public tonight. Nobody online, right? Review and approval for minutes of April 25th. Everybody got a chance to look those over and didn't see any errors or anything left out. I will hear a motion to accept them.
Move.
Second.
You have the first, Danny the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Up next, town band requests to use the bandstand.
Yeah, this one's kind of weird. Both Eli and I think there's a mistake in it. It says
Yeah.
Tuesdays from 6/13/23 to 6/29/23. And the town band concerts usually run from the Tuesday after graduation until the Tuesday before school starts.
Yeah,
That would not be June.
through August.
So that's
yeah.
probably an 8 instead of a 6?
Probably. but it-
8/29 is the last Tuesday in August.
Okay.
That would make sense though.
Yeah.
So for the sake of our arguments tonight, we are gonna change that 6 to an
Okay.
8.
That was easy. Just make another circle.
Yeah, and if they don't wanna play to the 8:29,
Well, then I guess they don't have to.
6:29, then
Yeah.
whatever, that's fine.
They'll be all done.
Yeah, so if we're all on the same page here, I think it's nice to hear the band play.
It is, and,
Yeah.
and EBA is going to do, EBCA, hate that name, is going to do popcorn again, because I am probably gonna get stuck, as I usually do, with something on the schedule, so I thought I'd ask the village manager if he wanted to come and do popcorn with me on a Tuesday night.
I'm sure I can make it a
All right,
Tuesday.
we'll figure it out, okay?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the library owners too, so it's a good thing to keep in mind.
So there's 2 separate
Yeah,
permits here, right?
Bandstand and park.
Bandstand and then the park.
Yeah, in the park.
and of course, they need the
So-
bandstand to put the band on.
Right, we need to edit both. Okay. Yeah, if we're good with the town band using the parking and the bandstand Tuesday nights from 6/13/23 to 8/29/23, I'll hear a motion to accept both parks use permit application and the bandstand permit application waiving the fee. I heard Leonard first, is there a second?
Second.
Eli with the second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Up next, we have Robin Owen, access permit request.
Does anyone know anything about this?
A little bit.
Gary,
Is there a garage going in too?
Gary
Not
said
that I'm
she's a
aware of.
driveway.
It's just another access from what the gentleman said when he came in and dropped us off.
So he's putting in another driveway?
Yeah. Gary checked out, we didn't see an issue with
Okay.
I think it could be a precursor to.
Well, I heard some of the neighbors are a little upset because they're kind of worried
That it's not,
that it's going to be a place to, you know, like a garage to do mechanical work on 18-wheelers.
I don't think so.
they'd
So I
have
hope
to
they're
do-
all wrong.
They'd have to do permitting and
I would think.
Yeah.
stuff for that, so. that
This
could-
is just
if
moving
that's
some
something
dirt
that could
around.
come up.
And that's the house way on the end.
Correct.
Right behind the 1906 house, basically.
That's
Just
on-
about
that's
right
on
in
the
their yard.
cul-de-sac.
Yeah, he owns the lower
it. Yeah,
lot.
there's 2 lots. Yeah, yeah, the second lot.
And there's no, is there a house in the second lot?
There's nothing. It's a
Noisy as
vacant
the
lot.
son of a- Oh, well, the world's full of them.
Did you say Gary just pulled in?
No, I said
No.
Gary,
Oh.
he went over and he didn't see any issues.
What is the comment of please allow Ronald Gordon to work on this?
Is that their
This is the
contractor,
ask-
or?
They're asking permission to have
That's, I think,
a
the
chosen
He's the
contractor?
gentleman that,
boyfriend or
Yeah.
something.
he's a partner, and he's the one that came in and dropped the application off, and I think he's the one that's gonna be doing the
He's a
work.
partner in their house?
Their boyfriend, girlfriend, I think.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, that's his name? Oh.
yeah.
That's his name, she's the owner of the house in the adjacent.
Oh, so she's basically asking or allowing
Yeah.
Yes.
Ron to apply on her behalf.
Oh, okay. Because he's going to do the work. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I personally don't have an issue with it.
I don't have an issue with the driveway.
and being on the end of the cul-de-sac, and I'm sure that we don't need to have any traffic studies, signage, anything like that.
He said he would do any, if we needed him to do culverts or anything, recommendations, he was pretty much on board to do whatever we stated when he dropped the application off.
I think it's the village's policy where they have to put in the culvert anyway,
Yeah,
correct?
he said just let him
Now,
know.
where
I don't think
exactly
I think
will
it's pretty
this end of this
flat.
driveway end up?
I don't
I'm
think there's
just
any-
curious.
I don't know.
I mean, because I was back there a lot when I worked for Jennifer, so I'm just kind of curious as to where that's gonna end up.
I believe it's the right of the existing driveway goes up there.
I thought you owned, like as you were looking at it, I thought it was to the left.
There's a lot of space to the left.
Correct. Let me look at
Yeah,
this.
that's usually
If
where
you
you
look
shoot
at
off your
that.
fireworks and.
Says the lower lot. I don't know the area.
So let's see, if
Does
we go
it-
back here.
Cause I feel like, I mean, the driveway request we've had came with, we're building a house or whatever, does it
Yeah, I
matter?
think-
Like, that's this moment, it just seems to be a
They're just trying to make it kind
Maybe they want a
of do one
horseshoe.
of these, an in and an out kind of
Right.
thing.
I think he just wants to put something in over here onto this flat spot next to the cul-de-sac. Get rid of that, you can kind of see their existing driveway.
So it is that, the policy is that they do install their own culverts, right, if they need it in driveways. It's not, I know a lot of towns have, like the town will pay for the first one, but after that, or the homeowner has to pay for the first one, and after that, the town or something.
I think it's the responsibility of the homeowner
Yeah, all right, well, what do we think? Your motion?
I'll move.
You as the first or second?
I'll second.
Heather with a second. All those in favor of approving this new access permit, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. All right, that's unanimous. Up next, we're gonna talk about the parks use permit and modifications of.
So, I believe you have in your packet what Jesse had sent me. I was thinking of what.
The blue and the gray and the,
Okay. So essentially, these are all the statutes that, because basically the last meeting, you folks had said, kind of let the DLC and whatever permitting process happen, as far as the alcohol consumed. And we were gonna get rid of the highlighted section, it's highlighted on yours as well.
the tasting event and the
Event,
continue
6.
for no more than,
6, yep, exactly, and then we conducted totally
Mhm.
within a designated area.
okay.
I'm guessing, back whenever you did the Harvest Fest and did the special event permits, if you read through any of these statutes, other than the special events permit, they're pretty vague. They don't require any designated area. They're a little bit more vague on the drink sizes and so forth. So essentially, it comes down to either we scrap it and don't say it has to be the special events permits. But if we did that, then each time somebody came in, it'd be up to you folks to decide, the trustees at the time, to decide on what that person asked for.
Okay, so that we could then decide if this looks
You
like a
want-
viable event or if it looks like it's gonna be
Yeah.
trouble and,
You'd have to set the size you want, or the beer garden, whatever you want to call it. The special events permits, if you add that back in, which if I give an opinion, that'd be my suggestion, then it just covers your bases going forward. And this would entail each, as you go to the Harvest Fest, each individual vendor. So if you had more than one vendor, they would have to follow those rules, the 10-foot rule, the designated area, and the drink sizes and so forth.
do we know what's followed everywhere else? Do we know what St. Albans does with Taylor Park?
So when I asked, again, they sound like they allow for kind of like a festival permits. And they do regulate, sounds like per event,
Mhm.
and they keep it pretty close.
Yeah. But it seems to be very successful.
Right.
I mean, they have hundreds and hundreds of people that show up and they all do very well.
Yep. So I guess it kind of comes down to that. If the special events would provide more of a, more specifically what would happen each time somebody came in. You wouldn't have to go through each time and say, well, we need to add, or how big do you want it, how small do you want it, how many drinks, and all that stuff. Whereas if you leave it a little bit, when you remove that, we would probably leave number 2 in there, this is according to Jesse. You could just leave number 2 in there, and then that would just designate. So now you're saying basically you're not going with special events, we remove that, but you could leave number 2 in there, that would still at least give you a boundary.
What do you mean boundary?
So if you look at number 2, it's.
You're talking about the highlighted part,
Yeah.
number 2,
Oh,
that's
okay.
crossed out in red,
I'm
that's
sorry,
red
yeah,
and crossed out.
Roman numeral number 4, number 2.
Okay.
It says, be conducted totally within a designated area that extends no further than 10 feet from the points of service, so forth. So
Well,
that,
that's a pretty small space.
Yeah.
it is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't put very many people in that 10-foot space, and if you had an event, let's say we had a wine tasting event, and you had 500 people that came to it, that would be a little tricky to maneuver.
Again, if you had 2 or 3 vendors, they each had their own 10-foot space.
Why would we have to leave 2 in though? I guess I'm just confused.
You wouldn't have to leave 2 in if you wanted to create a designated area.
Don't some of the, I feel like some of the stuff that you showed us before from the state had designated, rules about designated areas, right?
And it's bigger than 10 feet.
Yeah, they did.
No. Yeah, I know, I read through each one of these. They'll say boundaries, but not an actual footage. There's not actual footage.
Yeah, because
I
we
thought I
had,
remember reading something where if your capacity is over a certain amount, then you also need to have like another barrier
There's a double
fence.
barrier,
Right.
yeah.
I remember reading about fences.
Yeah, it was one of the ones that you put up on the screen.
But it wasn't, yeah, again, but it wasn't, there wasn't a size to it, so yeah, you could do that. But then, so then you open up, what does the park look like? I mean, we do the whole park, you do what do you wanna
So
do? Essentially, it
Is-
can't be an open container. So if you have a vendor, and we say you can have alcohol, it can't be an open container to the whole park. Or it could be if you regulate it, but then you'd have to have that whole area. fenced off.
fence the whole park off.
Right.
what you're saying is we have 2 options. We could keep something like number 2 in there where we predetermine the maximum size of a designated area, or if we were to remove that, then for each special permit, we would have to have a conversation and make a decision.
Exactly.
Those are 2 things, okay.
And that could vary a lot between what's going on.
Right, I think like one of the things I like about the flexibility is there's just certain events that holding to a very limited area just might not be functional, but
Right.
changing the shape of an area or the size, especially if it's an event that's all 21 or older, right? They could have a different sized area since, because you don't have minors in the park at that time.
And my thought is that all of that crowd control is the vendor's responsibility. I don't think that should be the village's.
It's not, it does fall on them in their licensing,
Right.
but it's just a matter of what the size looks like.
So what's the thought process behind this? Do you think that we're gonna get a greedy vendor, if you wanna say it that way, and have them fence off the whole park? Or something? Like what's?
No, I mean,
why is-
it's up to you, it's just how often, I mean, if you're good with doing it every time, I'm just thinking like 5 years from now, what is it gonna look like?
Right.
Or if you have an event that, I know lately it's been hard to get vendors, but then all of a sudden you have an event that has 6 or 7, they all serve alcohol. Another thing that Jesse and I were talking about, maybe it's not maybe alcohol related, so what does that look like? So like, let's say it's a park event that wants to have wine as well. So you allow that through the whole park, you know. So you can go by case, and then you have to set that so that when we probably have to make a change to the park permit to what the size would be.
I think that idea gives us more flexibility.
Yeah, and it just.
I mean, there are times when using the term fencing them in, in a 10-foot space is just not going to be feasible for whatever might be going on.
And then there's gonna be times where it's very appropriate.
Yes, yep.
Where you wanna make sure that you're separating the alcohol from the minors and.
And if we had control and took it case by case, we'd be able to take care of that, I would think.
Don't we ultimately have control over anything that goes on in there?
Yeah.
Like if we just leave it wide open where we don't have any requirements for space, let's just say that we did give them the whole park, can they even legally do that according to the state?
If they go, kind of depends on what event it's kind of a pain, I guess, because it depends on what event that then they are signing up for. So if they say we're doing a special venue serving permits, it's gonna be different category of like how much you can serve. But again, they'll have to follow.
Yeah, they'll have to follow whether they're tasting or serving and what the state says they can
Right.
and cannot do.
And that's why we also decided to just remove that.
Well, I guess I'm kind of confused at the whole, why we need to even be considering the size of the cage, if you will. From the village's standpoint, to me, it's whatever, I'm assuming we're talking about each one of these specific permits, like a festival permit, a special event permit, that kind of thing, where I was thinking it's whatever event they're at is what they need to follow. So if they're specifically holding a tasting, then they would need to adhere by the state's tasting guidelines.
Yep. Because they say exactly how much they can serve and.
And if we want to put on a rock concert in the park, then that'd be a completely different
Then
thing.
it'd
That
be
would
festival
change the
permits.
parameters of how the state says they need to do business,
And then we
right?
would also have to talk about like what would security and stuff look like there to make sure that, you know, all the rules are followed, but.
Right, and
And I mean,
that's just why I'm confused as to why we even need to consider that in our permit.
We don't, and that's why, if you're good with that, going through it each time, like, that's fine. If you wanna go through each time the event or somebody comes in with a park permit, we'll have that as a checkbox, and then you can decide.
On how big their area is gonna be?
Right, and on the event.
We just have to set that it's a festival or it's a tasting or it's a,
Exactly.
and then they adhere to whatever guidelines the state says.
Well,
Yeah, and that rock concert, they'd have to hire their own sheriffs.
And we
Right.
would be able to say, like, this is a specific event that we would like you to only use this much of the park for alcohol use. We would have the ability to say that. Based on the details in the application.
So Jesse words it well, that's what we hired. If the trustee's intent is to allow any of the various types of events to occur and leave the serving details to the requirements of the state law, then a general reference to chapter 9 should be sufficient.
That sounds about right.
Sounds
Yeah. General reference to 9 is
Yeah.
a good thing.
Yeah,
And we realize they're all gonna be different, we'll deal with each one.
right.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, okay, yeah, I think that's the route that we should go.
Same.
Yeah.
Because like if we're having a tasting, I'm
Right.
assuming you don't need to cordon off the whole park. And people
Right.
can walk around with their 1 ounce of whatever.
Actually, in tastings, I think they have to stay within the little fenced-in area.
They do
Not,
fence
well,
them off
it
for
depends,
tasting.
cause like if you go to a brew festival, you're allowed to walk around the festival with your tasting, but it is a 21 or older, so you get ID'd at the,
Oh, that's
there, you get a bracelet on that proves that you've been ID'd if you're the designated driver, you get a different.
At the Harvest Festival,
Again,
you
special,
simply had to stay within
Right, 'cause the
your
whole-
little fenced-in place.
special events,
the-
that
the
statute
difference is,
the
like,
most.
At the Harvest Festival, that was a tasting event within an event
Yeah.
versus like a wine tasting event or a brew
Right, where it's
festival, where
all-
that is what the event is. And then again, that they make sure that everybody's 21 or older before they can even get into the space.
Yeah, the special event permit is the most defined. The rest of them get a little vague in the statute of how much you can serve in the territory and area and so forth.
Okay, so is this the most recent,
This is the yes.
and he references section 9 or whatever, chapter 9?
Yeah, it's just above the yellow highlights.
Number 4, Roman numeral number 4.
Any event or activity.
I don't see that as a problem.
That's what I think we're looking for.
Yeah,
Leave it as is.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yep.
That was a real curveball. I meant to ask Jesse this. When I was looking at these statutes, I think we switched it to 7 days because that's what the statutes were, but when I was online, it was 5 days. So I have to ask him about that.
So should we change it to?
Let me ask first, and then if you're good with this, we'll just leave it as is.
I think that the people that are filing with the town clerk's office and then with the state can do it within 5 days.
So can we change the language to be, instead of like 7 days from the commencement, can it be something a little bit vaguer so that it's like whatever, says something to the effect of however many days is required to submit?
Because it's the state that sets that requirement.
Yeah, we'll ask Jesse. He may have a very specific reason why it's 7 and not 5.
So,
Isn't that for the 7 days, wasn't that to come before the board? Because it used to be 30 days. You
That-
changed it to
No,
7.
before it comes to the.
You gotta give the manager.
that's what I was gonna ask, because we wanna be able to see these with enough time to say yay or nay. But our parks permit requires, just using the park requires,
Right, so they're gonna have to fill out a parks permit application first. So,
So
like,
we'll
let's
know
just
what's
say
happening.
EVA or whatever comes in for a Harvest Fest and they say, we're planning on alcohol, this is our plan. And then it's
They
not
just have to
approved by
get
the
the-
state yet,
Right.
but we approve the parks use permit. They set up for the park and then they get their alcohol permit 6 days before or whatever. It's not gonna have time to make it up, we don't need to see it because we already
right?
already
so-
done it.
officially
So
approved them.
this is, yeah, so all this is saying is just that we're getting the proof of the documentation.
Yeah, basically, I think.
It is, no, it's exactly
As
what
long
I'm
as
saying.
that's
I
what
just
it's
want to
saying.
double check that.
Because the state sends it to the town clerk and then heretofore, as soon as the town clerk got it, I got it and then it came here.
And last year, we changed it from 30 to 7,
Mhm.
so I make it reasonable for people, but
Yep.
again, I thought we changed it to 7 because that was a state ruling. Like I said, when I was online today, it was 5 days, so if you're good with changing to 5, if Jesse says that's okay, I'll,
Yeah, I'm fine with that, or if we wanted to change the language to something of like the minimum numbers of days required by the state or something, you know, so that in case the state changes it. But either way, I'm fine with changing it to meet with the state.
I think this looks good, we'll just double check about the dates to see if it's supposed to be 7 or if it could be 5 or whatnot. But other than that, I don't think I have any other questions or complaints, I think this is hitting it on the head of what we
Yeah.
want to accomplish.
Yeah, I think it works.
I think we can do this.
so do you want to approve it, saying that if it is 5, I'll make the change to 5, and then we'll,
Yeah, I guess just ask them about why 7, I don't,
If there's a specific reason for 7, we'll leave it 7, but if the state's 5, leave it to 5.
because our parks use permit is 7, correct? No, yeah. But it also has to be to the trustees at a meeting prior. So they would have a very specific, a very small window to make the cutoff, if that's the case. We'll ask Jesse, and it may just be 7, that's because it's our number. Actually, now that I think about it, that's why.
That's probably why.
Did it send you a clean copy or no?
Talking about French one, yeah, I do have a copy.
You wanna double check still?
Well, I mean, we could be at this for a year.
Right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I think it's time to just get it done.
okay.
I mean, we've agreed that we're going to be on top of what's happening. We know that we're gonna comply with everything that the state wants us to comply with. So,
Yeah, and if it's only that number that's holding us
yeah,
up.
and it's
I
like,
think
what
that's
difference
to
does 2
reflect-
days make to us? None.
Exactly, I think it's just to reflect what our parks permit
Yeah.
has.
So I'll double check out with them and we can prove it, and then I can either make the change or not. If it's 7, we'll keep it 7, if not, we'll go 5. And then we'll go and I'll print a copy and we'll get your signatures.
And then, yeah, and then we'll have to warn it and all that.
Yeah, then we'll go through the whole process.
Yep.
Is that fair?
Do we need to make a motion to pass it
To accept it.
or to accept it?
I
Yeah,
move we
so-
accept the latest changes with the caveat that John will check on the 5 to 7 days.
And assure that it is the 7
Yeah.
days, is what we're looking for.
Whichever he is proper, he will
Second.
thusly comply.
Okay, we have a motion from Sandy and a second from Eli. All those in favor of accepting the new parks use ordinance amendment, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay.
I feel like I should say amen instead of.
Okay,
That's
Took us long enough.
kind of a revolving window.
Good things take time.
Good game that's played fast.
cruising right along here, we're at manager's report.
Did we?
There's a bunch
miss
of other-
something?
Yeah, the
It's
revolving?
only for Sam to
No, I'm
sign.
sorry, that's just for Sam.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Wow.
'Cause there's just, yeah, we had a lot of stuff in our packet, so
Yeah.
we don't
We'll
discuss
move
it.
This
right
is the
past
stuff that
all
we
this.
did
I thought that was the
last
stuff we already did.
Yeah, well, I did too, but
Yeah.
It is, it's just that official paperwork to be signed off on.
Here,
For the
last
formal
page, coming
bonding.
up, short and sweet.
Got it, we're good. I'm fine with us not talking about that right now.
Let's keep manager's report short and sweet too, just, well, we have an AMI update, which if you remember, AMI is our automated meters, we'd be able to monitor.
What?
I'm not even sugaring, but. So we have started the process with signing with VEPSA, and implementing the project. Abby and I actually did sit down with another vendor today, and just to listen to what they had to say, because we've been basically vested in VEPSA and getting the grant through them and so forth. But the grant has finally been signed off on from the state. Now we're just waiting to receive the funding from the state, and hopefully start implementation of the AMI meters. But again, we're hearing out, ordering the meters is out quite far, and then we're gonna be working on funding for it as well. So just an
Excuse
update there on AMI meters.
And we're doing water now too?
And there'll be water, yeah. We have a call next Tuesday, to see what that looks like, is that we're really waiting to see how this plans out. Cause, you know, we have to get into people's homes, what does that look like? You know, I'm sure some of these things haven't been touched in 50 years, so
Start breaking pipes.
start breaking pipes,
Yeah.
we have no idea
Running
how.
in 6 feet of cobwebs.
So next Tuesday, like I said, we have a call to, supposedly this group has already been through and does a bunch of these, so they're gonna give us the do's and don'ts, if you will. So, and then, you know, from what I've heard, talking to couple other munis, it's sometimes just hard, to get into people's homes, you know?
Hard to schedule. And
Yeah, in Bennington, they got a grant and they're replacing from the curb stop in, no cost, and they still just can't get into customers' homes. You know, it's free, they don't have to do anything. It's
some
just
people don't
leave.
like people in their homes
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
And in the world that we're in at the moment, everybody has become very skeptical about having anybody around that they're not positive of.
yeah.
For
So
good
more-
reason.
More to come on that, just give me an update there. Another update that came in late was I did email KBS and ask the question, what happens if we do start this fiduciary fund for the youth group. And essentially, when we get to that point, the trustees would develop the fiduciary fund, and then they could say its main intent is for a youth group. However, if something doesn't pan out, the funds can then be used. So it's basically essentially up to the trustees on what the funds would be used for if something didn't, and we did start to gain, this account started to grow a bit. So that was one of the questions I was asked, and that's the answer.
Awesome. Good, it's good to hear. We will not be doing a fundraiser this month. We just haven't been able to put it together. So we can wait on making the motion if we wanted to. 'Cause you said, John, I think you said you wanted to wait until there was actually money to put in there to start opening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
once,
makes
Abby and
sense.
I discussed that, just, yeah, once we start having some funds, then we'll open the account, and then I guess we probably have that meeting and you folks could decide.
Go from there.
Okay.
Did you ever get anywhere with either of the two, either the church
I
or the
haven't
real estate
tied up,
office?
so I haven't. Yep.
Because I did hear again from our priest, whether or not he's gotten his rumors twisted or has them straight, but that St. Matthew's apparently is gonna come up for sale.
Hmm.
That's what Father Dan told me.
Yeah, so we'll see.
That's two
I think
buildings.
There's a couple of possibilities, yeah.
What
Put
was
it-
the other one?
Pardon me?
What was the other one?
Well, the other one that's empty is the old Century 21
Yeah.
office that I
Oh, right
think
next to-
Jack DeBrule still owns.
Right next to the town clerk?
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's nobody in there?
Nope.
Are there?
Two apartments upstairs, but
Apartments are
that's
rented,
it.
I think, but.
Okay, yeah.
Berkshire halfway moved their office to St. Albans. They don't have anyone in the office here anymore.
And, yeah, and there may be some possibilities, depending on when the timing of this works out, so, yeah.
According to this, it's Enosburg Tavern Properties LLC out of South
Yeah.
Burlington.
That's what I found when I did some
They need to paint the roof.
searching.
Which is the
I guess I'm trying
Enosburg
to
Tavern
come out.
part really got me, because that's when Margot Sherwood owned it.
Huh.
That was like a decade and a half or two ago.
Okay, well, thank you, John. Other business?
I have one thing that probably should have been an agenda item, but I forgot about it when we did the agenda. EFEDC board is kind of trying to come to life and start over again a little bit. Jim is stepping away and will be resigning possibly at the meeting next week if all goes well. Sandy did some outreach to Raphael.
Raphael is definitely very anxious to be on EFEDC's board.
So my ask.
He's the manager at TD
tonight
Bank.
would be a motion appointing, according to the EFEDC bylaws, the village can have the trustees can appoint two people from the village. We just have one so far, the other one ended up backing out and didn't pan out. But if the board would be willing to make a motion to appoint Raphael to the EFEDC board.
Who's our appointment now?
It's kind of all fallen together. They're starting over from scratch. There's several board members that haven't been active or have resigned. I think at one point you were on it, weren't you?
Yeah, your name's on it,
And
Leonard.
you stepped, you officially resigned. That was one of the seats. I don't remember who the second village person
Andre
was.
Vians?
Yes, and he resigned as well. So as of right now, the village does not have anyone on the board.
Is it Antillon?
Yes, Raphael Antillon.
Okay.
I thought it was Antillion too until I got corrected.
That's
It's
what I
Antillon.
think.
Yeah, no, I would,
He's a
yeah.
very, very bright man and
Very nice.
cares greatly about this community. As a matter of fact, a little aside that we learned at EBA this morning. I had seen him in the park. He came and helped out with the Easter egg hunt. And we had had, lots of contributions for the 4,000 eggs that were in the park and all that sort of thing. And Raphael said to me, I feel terrible. The avenues for getting donations through TD are just awful, and I apologize. I mean, I felt badly for him. I apologize. It's, I don't like this. Well, apparently he's gone through another bunch of channels, and he announced to us this morning at the meeting that he thought he had found a way, because we have 4 banks sponsoring this summer concert series. Community National, Community NA, People's Trust, and, yeah, whoever the 4th one is. No, Community National, People's Trust Company, Community, and we had 4. Oh, no, Champlain Chevrolet is the 4th one, sorry. And TD is not. It's another bank. So, Bank of Bonk. So anyway, and we'd had nothing from TD forever. So he's trying to change that, which I think is admirable. And I think that we could use his banking skills, definitely, well, and his managerial skills. He managed a huge Walmart in New York. He's managed a big Price Chopper. Now he's managing this bank. So I think we'll be lucky to have it.
Well, I'll hear a motion to appoint Raphael Antolon as our EFEDC appointment.
Move.
Euler with the first, Leonard with the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
I'll stop in and see him tomorrow because I know he's going to be anxious to hear.
I'll be taking another seat on the board once it's
He's the guy that lives.
more developed.
Miss Keogh's
Okay.
house.
Okay, you want a motion
Miss
now, or you
Keogh's
wanna
house.
I
come
don't
back?
need, I don't live in Enosburg, so I fall under where the board will, not this board, but the EFEDC board will have to make my appointment because I'm not a Enosburg resident.
And I tried to get one other Enosburg resident to consider joining the board, but she declined.
I've got one more to
Okay,
go
and
after,
if
but
we
there's
end up
town-
with Zip, I had said that I would prefer to be on the loan committee, but I will be on the board if I need to.
so
I
They
was
got
on
a
it before,
revolving
so.
loan?
Yeah, we're
There's
gonna have a
still-
revolving loan. It's small,
Is
don't
still
get
on
excited.
that? No, I helped Jim with writing the applications for grants to get that started. And like part of the question was, why does the EFEDC need a revolving loan when there's one in St. Albans from the,
they have their own set of funds from the sale.
We have
of the
$40,000 from the
industrial
sale
park.
of the property, and 20 some odd years ago, we had a revolving loan fund here with the FEDC, and we actually helped, I think, 6 different local businesses. Our criteria back then was that we couldn't be the primary lender, we had to be the secondary lender. And so if you came to us and you already had your business, but you needed $5,000 for your sign and you just were tapped out, then you could come to us for that. And if we saw your collateral and went through everything, you know, you jumped through all the hoops, we loaned you the money and you had a payback schedule. And out of those 6 people, we only had 1 that we had to say, excuse me, but you're not paying. And they did. So it worked. And it's, you know, they were small amounts, but sometimes you have small local, you know, sole proprietors that small amount of money makes a big difference.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. I was curious, just.
That's what we did.
Thank you.
Any other business? If not, I'll hear a motion to get on with the executive session
That's a good sounding motion. I move we get on with it.
for the purpose of discussing negotiations in which premature public knowledge may compromise the position of the municipality.
Move.
You go with the first,
Second.
Leonard with the second. All those in favor of going into executive, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.